could you just start by telling me your full name and what you do?
Yeah. Well, my name's Imam Husnain Yaqoob. I'm the Imam, which is the faith leader of the Islamic faith in the city of Nottingham, specifically in Lenton, a Lenton Muslim centre.
So in the Islamic faith, what do you believe happens when somebody dies?
Okay, so in Islam, the first thing is that death plays a very important role in our whole tradition. So we are constantly reminded about death, and we are constantly told to think about death. So it keeps us upon the straight path, keeps us away from heedlessness and those things which would earn the displeasure of God. So it's something which we should constantly be referring to. So with many people, they think of death for it to be something which is the end of this life. However, for us, this is just a temporary station, and death is the beginning of the new transition that we are going to make. That's the entry point to our new life. So for us, this is the place which is, just temporary. It's like an airport where you're just on a transit flight, you're just about to go on to the next flight, and you're just at the airport. This whole life for us is just like that airport. We're just waiting for that transition where we can catch that transit flight and arrive at our destination. And that death at that point is that flight that we are waiting for.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes it less scary or daunting for people in your faith?
Well, in our tradition, the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said that the world is a prison for the believers. So those who are Muslims, they will see this place all around us, and they will see it's like a prison. So when you have like the movie The Matrix, it's all just like a deception. That's not the reality of it. So we're just waiting to be unplugged so we can see the reality. So for us, it is something that we look forward to. So we don't actually wish for death, but we do hope for the next abode, which is our final destination, which we are actually looking forward to go to. Yeah.
Wow. So when in that transition then, when somebody dies, where is it? Phrases like "where is it they go," but do you know what I mean? But
Okay. Right. So what we actually believe is that there will be the day of reckoning, as with the other traditions as well. It's very closely linked, because for us, Jesus, Moses, etc., Jacob, Ishmael, Isaac, they were all prophets of Islam as well. So far as what we are told is that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he is their brother in terms of prophecy. So what they brought, elements of that are true. So what in Judaism, what they believe, in Christianity, what they believe, there will be remnants of what we believe, because for us, it's always been there is no God but Allah, right? So that's what the previous prophets were on. And then the message was completed with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So for us, it's a matter of that what happens is in the end times, the whole world will come to an end, everybody will be raised, and then on that day, people's good deeds and bad deeds will be brought forward, and based upon how they've lived their life, they will either enter the abode of paradise, which is the garden, and they will receive that enjoyment forever in. And for those who have gone the opposite way, it will be the opposite scenario. But in between this life and until the day of that resurrection takes place, we have the people who are in their graves. So what happens to them? So that's what we call the world of the barzakh. And this barzakh is like, it's an intermediary realm, right? So it's like you're in limbo. Now within there, the people who die, they either receive glad tidings from the angels, which has been commanded by God, or they will receive the bad news from the angels, from what they have been commanded to by God. So the ones who are righteous, upright, they've lived a good life, etc., they followed what they were supposed to be doing. Once they enter their grave, the grave is expanded for them. So it becomes kind of like a chamber for them, and they go to sleep. And then on the day of resurrection, they will be awakened. And when they awake, they will be asked, how long did you sleep for? And they will say, I just went to sleep. Right? So it's like, in that realm, time does not apply. So time is for this world. So that's what we believe. So that's the intermediate realm. And then you go into the day of judgment. And then the day of judgment, you are entered into either paradise or the hellfire.
Is there anything in the Islamic faith in terms of preparing like anything you do you know when somebody is, you know that somebody's about to die?
Yes.
Is there anything that happens in terms of preparing that person for what's going to come next?
Yeah, right. So first and foremost, in the Islamic faith, everyone should be prepared for death, right? Because the next minute is not promised to anybody. So it's an entire preparation. So you should literally live your life as if, you know, and that's why I use the airport example, because nobody in their right mind, when they arrive at, say, for example, they're going from here to, you know, the Maldives, you know, that's their final, you know, destination, and they've got the connecting flight from Dubai airport. They arrive at Dubai airport and they look, this is a very nice airport. Let me just, you know, just start living here now. Nobody in their right mind would do that. And that's the preparation for us, that don't get too comfortable here because you're not here for a long time. So that's the first preparation. But then when somebody is on the brinks of death now, so for example, if they're in hospital or they're feeling the pangs of death, etc., then there are some preparations. It's recommended for those people who are around them to start reciting the testimony of faith. That is, that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger, right? And when you recite this, it's a form of encouragement to try and get that individual to recite it, because what we believe is the Satan comes at that time, because the pangs of death are something which is difficult. So when the Satan, he sees that the pangs of death are difficult upon the person and they start to get, you know, very thirsty, etc., he tries to lure them with this final temptation to, you know, renounce their faith. So that if you renounce your faith, I will help you and you will not die, or I will give you water. So what we do is we take a cloth, we wet it, and we slowly just squeeze it so water drops go into the mouth. And then we recite the testimony of faith in an attempt to try and get them to repeat it. And then there's the chapter of the Qur'an, which is the holy book of the Muslims, chapter 36. We recite that because the Prophet, peace be upon him, told us that this reduces the pains of death. So all of this takes place whilst the person is approaching the point of death.
And is it a faith leader that will recite that, or is it family members?
I mean, the beauty of our religion is that as long as you have knowledge, you know what you are doing, you can do it yourself. So because obviously faith leaders are not always available, right? So I have people, you know, like one of the brothers who's sitting in the mosque now in the final 10 nights, he's come all the way from Bradford just to sit here. Right, so it's one of those where we can't be available all the time. So it will be where they just give us a call and say, okay, this is what's happening. What should we do? Do you have any advice? So you say, okay, this is what you need to do. So then they implement it. So it's the family members most of the time that do it. Yeah. And if they're not available, so if somebody's like passing away in the hospital, then what the hospital sometimes do is they arrange for, you know, a faith leader or somebody to come in to speak to somebody who's approaching the deathbed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So, and then what happens immediately after somebody dies?
Okay, so immediately, obviously after we've gone through all the process of the death certificate and the council and all of that stuff, once the deceased has been received by the family, then the deceased is bathed, right? And it's called a ghusl, right? And this is something which has to be done. So any impurities, etc., from death that have occurred, these are wiped away. The person's cleaned with fragrance water, with like frankincense, right? The place that they're being washed, that's all fragrance, etc. And once they're nice and clean, then there is special shrouding, which is known as the coffin, right? This special piece of cloth for men is 3 pieces, and for women it's 5. So they are placed within the coffin, and then the deceased is placed into the coffin, and then the shrouding is done over them. So now they are completely wrapped in these white garments, and they're ready to be taken to the burial place. So this is why when you see the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage to Mecca, you'll see like everybody's dressed in white, right? And that's to just show equality. And then when you're there, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, if you have nothing, whether you're from India, whether you're from Bangladesh, whether you're from America, it doesn't matter what color you are, everybody is wearing the same garments, those two pieces, because it's there to show that you are all Muslims, you are all equal, you are all brothers and sisters to each other. The only thing that differentiates you is the worldly possessions that you guys are holding personal to yourself, but in the reality is that you're all one. This is why when you go to the burial as well now, everybody has those same garments, which is the white pieces of cloth.
So that is done, just to clarify, that's done by the family members, is it? That washing?
Yes. If they're not able to, then there are specific Muslim burial places, like where they take charge of the burial and the shrouding, etc. So they contact each one of these people, depending upon which mosque they go to, because the mosques are linked with a special funeral service. So they will actually oversee and make sure that you are able to do everything correctly. But if they don't need it, then they just do it themselves.
Yeah. Great. I also love that, just as a side note, because it's so important, in my opinion, to be really for death to be something that everybody deals with in their bodies, rather than it be some sort of professional in another room that you never see. Do you know what I mean? It's so important to that, to the grieving process as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a sign of honor as well. I mean, like for a woman that passes away, it's her mother or her sisters or her daughters. They carry out the washing over her, and then for a man, it's either his father, his brothers, his sons. You know, so the uncles, etc. They come together and they do the washing, and the because Islam is supposed to be, it's a religion of modesty, so everything has to be like protected. So whether it's a man or a woman, their private area is all covered. So when the washing takes place, it's actually done underneath the piece of cloth. So the private area is not exposed to anybody that's there, right? So it's and just a side note which you might find interesting is that, you know, we actually believe that the soul is returned to the body once it has been removed, and they're aware of everything that's going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
At what point would that happen? When?
They're observing everything. Yeah.
So then, when that washing is happening, then it's like you're doing it whilst thinking that they're in the room with you watching.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So that's why it's a matter of, so you have that physical death, okay, and then the soul, dependent upon how you've lived your life, it will either be taken away in a very nice way, or it will be taken out in a rough way. And in the nice way that it's taken out is, it will literally be, I mean, obviously because we're dealing with grief, it might be good to not mention the negatives and just, right. So it will be one of those where the soul will be removed, like literally like a water drop comes out of a water skin. So it's very easily, the soul will be removed by the angel of death, and then the angel of death will come and sit at the head of the person. The angels will come and they will look upon this person. Then they will take the soul and they will go to the first heaven. Then they will enter the first heaven, where the angels who are being surpassed, they will all congratulate this person and give salutations to him. Then he will go to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh heaven. And upon there, then God will say, write this person amongst the righteous people. And then once that's done, he will be shrouded again. His soul will be shrouded. And this sweet fragrance of musk will be applied to him. Then he will be sent back to his body. Right. So it's like a form of a double burial that's taking place. It's a physical burial, and then there's spiritual burial as well. Right. So, yeah, and it's actually mentioned that it's 500 angels that actually accompany that soul to the heavens.
Wow.
And then bring them back down.
So how are people put to rest, and how soon after death is that, and why?
Okay, so for us, it's everything has to be done immediately. Like
so could you start this with when somebody dies, everything has, and so we know.
Oh, so full sentence. Okay, yeah. So for in the Islamic faith, when somebody dies, everything has to be done immediately. There should be no delay whatsoever, and this is based upon the fact that if it's a righteous soul, then for them, they are going to this abode which is appealing for them, it's beautiful for them, it's what they've been waiting for. So it's don't keep them away from this abode that they need to go to. So they go, and the burial is literally straight after the shrouding has been done, the funeral prayer is done, which is known as the janazah prayer, where everybody comes together, they pray for the deceased with the hope that God forgives all of their sins, etc., and accepts them amongst the people who are righteous and amongst the people of paradise. So then the deceased is placed back, the coffin is closed, and they're taken to the graveyard. And there at the graveyard, they're lowered into the grave. The soil is placed over the grave, and then there is, dependent upon what school of thought you follow, some people, they just leave that there and they leave. Other people, they start to recite the Qur'an to try and bring blessings. They recite the adhan, which is a call to prayer, to try and wave off any demons or any Satan or anything that may be there. They make supplications, etc. So, but everything has to be done swiftly just to get the soul to where it wants to be, because it doesn't want to be here.
So is there anything that happens in your faith to support the family or to remember the deceased in the years after somebody's died?
Yeah, again, with this, it's a matter of which school of thought you follow, but the general view is that when the actions of a person, once he passes away, they all come to an end, except for three. So if he gives charity, which continuously benefits, so for example, you go on, place a water well in a village somewhere, as long as people are drinking from that water well, even if you're passed away from this world, you will still receive rewards for it. If you set up an educational center where people are, learning Islamic knowledge, right? Even once you are gone, that Islamic center where they are gaining that knowledge, you are receiving reward for it. And the third one, which is important, is that the people who make the supplication, the righteous child who makes the supplication of forgiveness for his parents, etc., those are, those supplications, they benefit that individual who has deceased. So what happens is when the person passes away, for approximately 3 or 4 days, the family, they all gather. It's normally in the mosque, or it's in any other place. Then when they are there, they sorry, it's just thrown me off.
Sorry, no, sorry.
So when they gather either in a mosque or either in the home, etc., and there people come from different, the family members, the relatives, the friends, etc. They all come, they visit them, they pass on their condolences, they all supplicate for them. And for the first day, it's normally the case where the family are not expected to cook. They're not expected to cook. So normally the funeral service that they provide, that they're with, they would normally provide them with food on that day. Then the second and third day, the other families, they will get together and provide food for them, because if you just lost a loved one, the last thing you're going to be thinking about is cooking, etc. And then you've got people coming from out of town, and then it will be, something which is difficult to deal with. So people come together as a community to ensure that life is easy for them in that as much as possible in those few days. And then on the 4th day, they have a big collective supplication where everybody gets together. They all recite litanies, they recite the Qur'an, etc. They make supplications that the person is forgiven for any bad things that they've done, and they're admitted into paradise. So that takes place. And then outside of that, people make supplications for the people every single day, or once a week, or in the blessed months or the blessed nights. So like in the month of Ramadan, they'll continue to make supplications for them. Then annually, when it marks the anniversary date, they will make supplications for them again. But it's just a constant process where you don't forget the person that's passed away. Like their children, their grandchildren, they continuously supplicate for them. And then it passes on to your children as well. It's like with my father, he used to make supplications for certain people, and I sit with him. And then now I'm making supplications for these people, but I never had met them. Yeah, and it's just a matter of, my father used to supplicate for these people, so they were dear to him. Now I will supplicate for them as well. And then now my 5-year-old sits with me, and he sees me supplicating for these people, and then the hope is it just carries on. So these people have always got somebody who is supplicating for them.
Is there anything else that is important in the Islamic faith that you think that people need to know about?
I think I've mentioned all the important points, but with regards to, grief, I think we should address that in the Islamic faith, because in the Islamic faith, although it's things like depression and anxiety and these mental health awareness issues are not specifically mentioned. If you look in the Qur'an and the traditions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, advice is constantly given about this, where God says, for those of you who are in trouble, if you need help, seek it through patience and supplication and prayer. And then God says, certainly he is with those who are patient. And he reminds the people that patience is beautiful. And he says, with hardship comes ease. And then he emphasizes again by saying, certainly with hardship comes ease. So God is constantly reminding the people, don't worry. Whatever you are going through is not something which you are going to be dealing with for the rest of your life. With hardship will come ease. And the fact of the matter is that some people think, I can't deal with this, I can't deal with it. God tells us in the Qur'an, he says that no soul shall bear a burden that it cannot bear. So whatever you are going through, if you are going through it, then know that God has put you through it because you are able to bear it, and he is the one that will bring you through it. So it's a constant reminder all over the Qur'an. You get the examples of Joseph, right? When he's put into prison and then his brothers throw him in a well, right? So you're getting this advice of how he dealt with it. And then Jacob, when he lost Joseph because of his sons, how did he deal with it? And you're just getting this constant reminder of, with hardship comes ease. With Noah and his people, how it became easy for him after. And then with Jonah, when he goes into the belly of the whale, it's just a constant reminder in the Qur'an that everything you go through, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to walk towards the light. And the only way you can walk through the light is by learning about the religion, by picking up the Qur'an and reading it, right? Because people ask, how can you prove Islam is the truth? Islam is the truth because of the Qur'an, because of the method and the way that it was written. People go through primary school, they go through secondary school, they go to college, they go to do the PhD, the masters, etc. This style of writing and engagement, it changes. I wasn't speaking like this when I was in secondary school. People used to have difficult understanding me because I was speaking with slang. But time progresses, you become educated, you learn things from your environment, the way you speak, it changes. But with the Qur'an, over a 23-year period, where verses were being revealed mostly 5 verses at a time, the style of writing and the eloquence never changed. So it was just constant. So the ones who understood the Arabic, they came to the realization that this can't be man. Because if it was man, the style would have changed, right? So everything that we need to deal with grief, etc., is there. It's in the Qur'an. We just need to be those people who turn to it, and then that will give you the support that you need.
If somebody was in a group and they came in, would there be anything
identifying?
Yes, identifying that maybe they have just lost somebody.
Yeah.
It might not be.
This might upset anyone who's pro-feminism or anything like that. So with a woman who's lost her husband, for 4 months and 10 days, she's in mourning, right? So for her, it's an honor for her marriage, and she stays at home. She doesn't wear any makeup. She doesn't wear any fragrances. She doesn't wear jewelry, etc. And she just stays at home. And this is just out of honor and respect for her marriage. For other people, if their father's passed away, the brother, the sister, whether it's male or female, for them, it's not a matter of that they have to observe this. This is specifically for a married woman whose husband passes away. So for the rest of the people, it's the commonality, and it's just where people have to understand that somebody has passed away. So if you go to pass the grief onto them, your condolences, etc., you don't go in you know, your party gear. So, you know, you just wear like casual clothes, etc.